뉴스포인트는 시카고 샤프 여행사 협찬으로 보내드립니다.
여러분 안녕하십니까? 오늘 뉴스포인트에서는 미시간주 상원의원이신 운영 합긋의원과 미시간의 교육 정책에 대해 함께 말씀 나눠보도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 진행을 맡은 저는 이스턴 미시간 대학교 성악과 교수 남미애입니다. 여러분께서 잘 아시다시피 합긋의원은 입양아 출신으로 미시간 하원으로 3선을 했고 아시안계 최초의 상원의원으로 현재 활동하고 계십니다. Thanks for joining us, Senator Hapgood. You have become a leader on educational issues in the state, and you are currently serving on the Michigan State Education Committee. And I also learned that both your parents had great leadership in public education in the state. As a former principal of an elementary school and the president of the Michigan Federation of Teachers, I am sure we have so much to learn from you on this subject of education. I also learned that you have been advocating for quality education, increased college participation rates, giving study opportunities to students of low income, students of colors. Indeed, I want to join you in this mission in every possible way as I can, as an educator myself. The first question I have for you is how you view on our current youth education system in our states, and what are the needs?
Well, thank you so much for having me on today's show. This is an issue that I'm truly passionate about. As you mentioned, both of my parents were educators in their professional lives, and they really instilled in me an emphasis on education growing up. So for me, that was a foundation. For me, it was not, the question never was, are you going to college? The question is, what college are you going to? So I always had the expectations that education was something that I would take seriously, and that it was very important to my future. And so that's what I bring with me. And as you mentioned, I'm on the Senate Education Committee, but I'm also on the Appropriations Committee. And the Appropriations Committee is the committee that spends the money.
Okay.
And that's really one of the bigger issues that are facing our schools right now.
Yes.
So if you look across the state, schools are they're laying off teachers. They're cutting back on programs. They're cutting back on some of the really great programs which help provide relevancy to education for some of our students. So let me give you an example. Arts, I think, is a great example.
Yes.
Music, performing arts, fine arts. Those are all things that speak to some of our students, some of our young people, in a really strong way.
Indeed.
And because of the fact that funding across the board has been reduced, some of those programs are not seen as core academic programs and are seen as less relevant and less important to fund.
Yes.
As opposed to, say, math or science or English. And so as a result, some of our students, unfortunately, see they question some of the relevance of being in school. That's something that schools have to work on in terms of trying to provide that relevancy. But if they're constantly forced to cut sports and music and arts and all the other programs that really kind of draw students and young people into the schools and really let them see why education is important to their lives, I think that we're going to be missing out on more of our students. So one of the biggest needs, I think, is to reverse the recent funding cuts that we've put into education. And we started to do that, but very little. So a couple of years ago, we made major cuts to our schools, and you're still seeing the after effects of that all across the state. There was a school district that even went and closed its doors. They said, we're closed for the year, and that's the worst outcome that you can have.
Yes, these are the really great points that you brought out, and I hope that you, while you are working on this Senate Education Committee, you would have some resolutions prepared to submit. And do you have any resolutions that you are currently working on that they share with us?
Well, so the overall funding picture for our schools is more of a question of the appropriations process. So how much money do we bring in as a state for education, and are we using it all for those purposes? So currently in the budget that we propose for next year, as well as the current year budget, we've taken $400 million out of our K-12 budget for our local schools, and we've used that on other things. And so that's the first step. If you want to shore up our school funding, you can stop taking money out of our school aid budget and stop using it for other things, and just use it for our K-12 schools. That's going to bring about an enormous benefit to our young people. And it's an issue, unfortunately, that hasn't gotten a lot of traction. Although I'm a Democrat, I know that there's Republicans that are sympathetic to this issue, that they want to support K-12 funding as well. There's just not enough of them right now. We haven't been able to get a majority to vote for, supporting our K-12 funding. One bill that I did introduce, it's part of the Michigan 2020 plan.
Okay.
And so there's a website to it. It's michigan2020.com. If you know anything about college funding and the cost of colleges, the funding has gone down, and the cost to the person has gone up. So it used to be where the state would cover about 2/3 of the cost of a college education. The tuition or the person going to school would cover about 1/3. That's flipped, where the state is now covering about 1/3, and now tuition is about 2/3. So at the same time, we're saying with our words that education is the most important thing. We're making it more difficult for our young people to go and get that college education. And even the kids that are able to go, lots of them are taking out tens and tens of thousands of dollars in debt. So this Michigan 2020 plan is a way to reverse that. I'd invite viewers to check out the website, michigan2020.com.
Yes.
And it's a way to prioritize higher education funding a lot better than it has been.
I will immediately visit michigan2020.com, and then I will spread the words out. What are the problems in the education system of Wayne County, including Detroit? What are your ideas to resolve them?
I think that there are a multitude. There's several issues that is facing education. One of them is that we have a population that isn't having as many kids as it has in the past. And so in a given school district, you will have just less kids, and so you'll have to consolidate. School districts are being put in a situation where they have to figure out if they're going to keep a school building open or not. So demographics have shifted around a little bit. Another issue that I think is very important is the overall culture, and I think that the areas that I represent and Michigan is just it's a wonderful state. I love my communities. I represent 10 cities, and there's great things about all of them, but we're in lots of the state. We have kind of this automotive or manufacturing mindset and culture, which has been very good for us in the past. But the world of work and the world of education has changed a lot over the years. And so you really need to take steps beyond just high school or just beyond the basic education. And so it's about helping to shift the culture in Southeast Michigan and across the state, really, about placing more emphasis on education. Changing culture is a challenging thing to do.
Yes.
You can change a law easier than you can change culture. So that's part of the challenge that we're faced with. But I have committed myself to trying to be a voice in that.
Wonderful.
I think that's one of the things that we absolutely can do to try to get more kids going in the right direction and continuing along a path of education. But then we have to be there to support them.
Absolutely.
And this goes back to what I was saying earlier is, taking money out of the school fund and using it for other purposes. We've got to stop doing that. We've got to make sure that college is affordable, that's accessible. I will tell people to go to college and get as much education as they can till I'm blue in the face. But it has to be something that they can get to. Now the other thing that we can do is help them take the steps to go to college. So you'll imagine out there that for some people they may be the first person in their family to go to college. They may not know all the ins and outs of the system. There's a federal aid system out there for people to borrow money or to apply for aid and those sorts of things. And so if you're dealing with that for the first time, that can be a little bit intimidating or a little bit cumbersome. And so just having some people there to help support people as they move through the process, that's something that really doesn't cost a whole lot of money and can help people make good decisions as they're moving forward. So there's plenty of things that we can do to try to help move our education system along. But if young people have this goal out there that's possible, then they have some more hope.
Yes.
And I think that's very important, is that we just don't say you have to go to school, but that they have some hope that they can go to school, that they can go to the college or university and afford it and get through it and all those sorts of things.
Yes, this really affordable education I am really looking forward to. Senator, you have spoken about the diversity in education, and naturally I am much more onto this diversity in education to be really important priority in our higher education. What are your thoughts on benefits of diversity in education? How can we enhance the instructional techniques that increase genuine racial integration?
I think that diversity is, if you just think about the Asian populations, it's something that I spend a fair amount of time working with community leaders in the Asian community, and that certainly includes the Korean and Korean American community. And just among the Asians, we have so much diversity.
Yes.
If you think about the number of languages that that immigrants bring with them from just Asian countries, let alone all the rest of the world, and so diversity is something that can be a tremendous strength for us in education. I know that going to the University of Michigan, where I spent my undergraduate time,
Yes.
Was absolutely a wonderful opportunity to meet young people from all over the country, all different ethnic, racial, religious backgrounds, and I just learned so much from that opportunity. So to the extent that we can support schools that don't buy into kind of a self-segregation model, I think that that's a very important thing to do. I think that some schools, will cater to, I guess, a narrow viewpoint, and that's fine, but I think most of our schools should be this diverse, dynamic, open model where young people from all backgrounds can come and learn from each other. And so, I think that's people are going to have to live the rest of their lives in the real world.
Yes.
And so, to the extent that we can have kids learn about the real world while they're in school and interact with people with different backgrounds and learn from them as well. I know that there's still exchange programs out there where young people will spend weeks or even more in going out to other countries, or people here will host families from other countries. I think that those are almost priceless opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. Is there a hope that state of Michigan would support financially to have those diverse education program to be in place in higher education in the near future?
I think that there's a number of ideas that are out there that are being talked about. I think that one of the things that the governor has done, and there's a couple of things that I'm a little more critical of him about, but he has been someone who's talked about immigration being a very positive thing. Obviously, you can immigrate for a couple years and spend your time for education. I think that there are some possibilities out there. I haven't seen enough of the concrete proposals that can really be put forward and moved forward. So far, it's more still in the discussion phases.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that there are some things that come out of these discussions that do provide. There's obviously also the national conversation that's going around immigration reform. So that's another venue where these issues are being talked about. But the state, I think, has a role. I think the state has a role in terms of being open and being inviting to students from all around the world. And quite frankly, that's one thing that we can do a little bit better on. We haven't done a terrible job on, but it's worth spending some time on.
The next question is, what are your thoughts on Governor Snyder's work to reform the state education system?
I think that this is some of the areas that I've been a little bit more critical about. His budget proposal back in 2011 and basically moving forward has been it's taken a lot of money out of our schools, and it's this proposal where you use $400 million for things outside of K-12 education, and so I certainly haven't supported that. I think that was a mistake. One of the specific efforts that he's made and others have made for the city of Detroit, for Detroit Public Schools, is related to the EAA. So he set up the Education Achievement Authority, and it's just been a year now since it's existed and had students. And the results have been very kind of shaky, very kind of questionable. They've set up a lot of PR, public relations, to make it sound like they're doing really good things. But if you just scratch a little bit below the surface, they've run into a lot of issues, a lot of problems. Some of it is kind of startup issues, and you hope that they grow beyond that. But they're also not being as forthcoming as I think that they should be. So they're using millions and millions of taxpayer dollars, and they're really kind of being guarded about allowing information to go forward. If you think about any local school district, you have a local school board. You have people who are elected locally, and they have decision-making authority, but they're also elected officials, so they're accountable to that local community. And that's something that you really don't have with this EAA. And so they don't respond to the questions in the way that you would like, and they've allowed for limited disclosure of information on some of their activities. And quite frankly, I think that the public deserves better. So there's that. I think that the intent of some of those efforts are good. I think no one wants to see kids in struggling school districts or schools, and so the intent is good. But I just don't think that they're doing it very well. One of the other sets of education reform ideas is more choice, more charters, more cyber schools, and I think that this is another situation where it's not being done very well. They're basically saying that if all we do is allow for more choice, give more choice, then everything will fix itself. And the problem with that is that we've had a lot of choice for years now. And if choice was a panacea, we would start seeing more and better results out of it. We're not, and the response to that is more choice. So it's almost illogical that we're discussing things in the way that we're discussing them. We've talked about choice, but in my mind, what are you doing to improve the choices that are available? That's the bottom. I'm not hearing from a lot of people out there in the community saying, I just want more choice, I want more choice. They want better choices, or they want more support for their local school. And so sometimes when you have a lot of choice, you create instability in your local school. And so that's something that's very important to recognize, is that if you take a couple kids out and send them to this school, and you take a couple kids out and send them to this school, that impacts the funding flow to that local school, and impacts what they're able to do, and it makes it challenging. And so that's the trade-off. Choice is great, but I would rather have good choices, and we haven't focused on that in the policy discussions that we've had. We've tried to, but we haven't.
Okay, it is so important, actually, all people to learn about what choices they have, whether that is a real positive move, instead of their abundant choices but not knowing how these education systems are performed. I think that it is very hard for us to evaluate their performance before they make a choice. So I don't know exactly whether those for-profit charter schools really offer better choice, quality choice over public school systems. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's the fundamental question. I think that's for some reason in the state of Michigan, we have focused in on for-profit charter schools run by these management companies. Some of them are good, some of them are very mediocre, some of them are not so good.
Okay.
So there's a mixed picture out there, but does the public really understand what they're getting? why isn't the rest of the country experiencing the same types of results? The rest of the country has a far less number or percentage of for-profit charter schools, and the reason is because they focused on the policy from the outset. They focused on how can we draw quality, how can we make sure that the operators of charter schools in our state and our communities are of the highest quality possible. And that's why you've seen the disparity. Michigan wrote weak laws when we set it up back in the late 90s. And as a result, it hasn't had the impact that we would have liked to.
Thank you. Senator, there has been a debate on whether teachers should be paid by their performance rather than seniority and education. Any thoughts on this?
Lots of discussion about this. You know, some of it sounds pretty interesting. Some of it sounds even pretty good. But the devil's in the details, so to speak. The actual data, which I think we don't use as much as we should when making these decisions, really doesn't point to a large effect. It really doesn't, you know, the studies that have been done out there really hasn't shown that it's something that provides a great benefit to our education system. It may provide some perverse incentives, you know, among employees, and so I mean that's something that should be carefully considered. I know that some people have talked about, you know, maybe what you could do is set some sort of a goal for, say, a school building, and if everyone in that school building worked together and moved towards a common result, then they could share in some sort of a performance incentive. You know, something like that sounds interesting, but you know, I think that this is something that some people say that this would cure all of our ills, but what they won't do is they won't fund necessarily. They won't provide the funding to actually do this in the best way possible.
Oh, okay.
So my concern is that you do this, and what you do is you end up depriving lots of teachers of significant pay and reimbursement, you know, compensation. And so that's, I think sometimes you kind of move the shells around and you still have the same shells, and you know, we should just be careful.
Okay, thank you. There are currently emergency managers in the 9 Michigan school districts. What problems are they appointed to fix, and can they really fix these?
So there's emergency managers in cities and school districts. I have one that was in one of my cities and then moved over into another city. So certainly, you know, cities and communities are feeling some of the same effects in terms of you know, funding and fiscal stress, if you will, and so that's something that's on our minds definitely. You know, there's a very real question about the effectiveness of emergency managers in the education arena. In a couple of examples that we've seen out there across the state, they basically taken the school district and then turned it all over to charter school operators. And so you get into some questions about what's the accountability for emergency managers. They're definitely not elected. They're not oftentimes they're not people from a community, although sometimes they are. But the concern that you have is, how are they making their decisions? Is it something that's coming from Lansing, or is it something that the local community is really buying into? And I think, you know, the biggest example of an emergency manager in a school district is Detroit Public Schools. Now, there was an emergency manager there during the last years of the Granholm administration. So a Democrat appointed an emergency manager. The new governor has come in and appointed an emergency manager. And so it's not a Democrat or Republican issue. The results are not very good. I think that the results are, they're able to do some things in terms of maybe moving the debt around and doing some things that may be helpful. But if you look at the amount of debt, overall it's very similar to what it was years ago. And you look at the enrollment has continued to go down. And so the two biggest, I think, factors out there when you look at, is the school district doing well? Is it overcoming some of the challenges that it may have? Detroit Public Schools has had an emergency manager for years, not just a year, not just 2 years, for years, and they haven't turned the corner. And so I just don't know that it hasn't been effective in my mind.
Okay, that's very helpful to know.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you tell us about right to work law, how it can impact on teachers' union and education quality?
Yeah, so right to work law was the controversial law that was passed at the end of last year. And
Yes.
so what it said is that people didn't have to pay into their local union. So if you think about a union, they're there to negotiate on behalf of all the employees in that group at, say, a school. So if you think about one school site, you could have a union there that's working for all the teachers in that school site. Part of the concern about this law would mean that some of the employees at that site could get the benefits of the negotiated contract, but not pay for any of the costs that go with negotiating that contract. And so that's the real controversial part about it.
Okay.
So the economists and the people in public policy will talk about free rider issue. More political term would be freeloader.
Oh.
So basically getting something for nothing. Now we know that some people will be in tight economic situations, and so they may say, well, I really can't afford to pay into the local union. I have, my daughter needs braces, or my mom's sick and I have to help support her, or whatever the case may be. And so they may be in a financial, very difficult situation. But it's somewhat controversial. And so if you allow people not to pay in but to get the benefits, then more people are going to think, I can get these benefits without paying in. And if enough people do that, then there's not going to be enough resources there to run the union and to negotiate well with the employer. And so that's part of the concern, is that you're going to undermine the whole group of employees at that place.
Well, I know that you are also an advocate for creative and innovative learning. As a music educator myself, I am concerned about music and arts program being significantly cut in public schools, which you have already mentioned earlier. I wonder how we can restore in another way as an educators. We of course can advocate all the benefits of music education, what really does in children's education, because children's all learning needs creative mind and innovative mind and analytical thinkings, and learning music really supports all other areas of learning. And also children learn to express themselves, and it really, in my opinion, it helps youth violation prevention. I wonder, is there any way that as a music teachers in all public school as well as in colleges and universities have this more, our concerns and voice could be more heard to the state committee?
Yeah. Now, yeah, I mean, that's a great point, and you definitely have a friend in me.
Yes.
In terms of that, you know, for what I talked about before. But one of the things that isn't always captured on standardized test scores, which we seem to care a lot about, is creativity. So when you're asked to give a multiple choice answer, you know, is it A, B, C, or D? You know, you have to give one of those answers, and one of them is right, but that doesn't capture creativity, and it doesn't always capture problem solving, and it doesn't capture always, you know, critical thinking and some of these other things that we really need. I think that in some respects, that's been one of the strengths of our population, our education in this country, is, you know, having some room for creativity and freedom of thought and those sorts of things. And so, you know, I'm concerned that not just, you know, we're losing opportunities for young people, but we're losing something as a society. I really think that that's a real big concern. But again, you're also maybe losing some kids who, you know, are thinking, well, gee, there's nothing else here. I just lost my music class, which, you know, I loved, and I'm not doing real well in this other class. And so then all of a sudden school becomes a little bit, you know, less positive for that student. And the school system has to try to find ways to respond to that. But we, as policymakers in Lansing, also have to try to be a little bit more supportive of this as well. And so I'm definitely someone who would also advocate for trying to make sure not just music, but other things, not just art, but other things. So, you know, I want my kids to have a well-rounded education. I want them to have the best education that they can have, but I want them to come out of school, you know, not just knowing math, as important as math is. I want them to have, you know, multiple experiences and you know, learn about things in different ways. And I think that we're some of that's definitely threatened.
Thank you, and thank you so much for all your support in this great quality education, and look forward to any opportunity for me to be part of that mission. Thank you. Besides you're serving as a Michigan Senator, you've done volunteer work in other areas, such as child literacy programs and holiday meal deliveries. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, we try to be connected to the local community in as many ways as we can. So, you know, one of the things that I do is hold a regular coffee hour. So that's just one opportunity where any resident can come and, you know, express their concerns or their problems or whatever it may be. Sometimes someone is having a snag with state government in some way, and we're actually able to help some people. So that's a very positive thing, but there's other opportunities for me to get out into the community, to speak to groups, to do volunteer work. We have a local gleaners distributor and a food pantry. It's called Fish and Loaves Food Pantry in my city of Taylor. And, you know, we try to get over there and support them. And just a multitude of different things that involves kids or seniors or everything in between. It really is one of the best parts of what I do, is to get out into the community, is to connect with people, to let them know who I am and you know, a little bit about me, just so that they know that there's a real person out there that you know, is trying to work on their behalf, and certainly doing some of the volunteer work or doing some of those assistance types things is a great way for me to connect and to get out there and hear and see what's going on.
I'm sure that whole community is so appreciative of your all work, and I'm sure that they feel more hopeful and positive about their life in your community.
Thank you. I hope so.
I am very sure. Personal question. Have you been to South Korea? I know your wife and her family are from South Korea. If so, what was your first impression of Korea?
Yeah, I've been a number of times. So the first time was way back in 1998, and I went with my family, and it was a fantastic experience. I mean, I was really impressed. It was a big, modern, energetic, bustling metropolis, and we were in Seoul. And we did a little bit of traveling, but not much, because we were there only for a handful of days. But you know, I just came away from that with just very fond memories, and really happy that I was able to at least find some connection with where I come from. So that was a very positive experience. But as you mentioned, my wife is Korean, and she came over to study, and I met her when she was in school. She was in graduate school at the time, and I've been back a number of times since we first met. To go meet with the in-laws, to meet with family and friends, and it's you're really not there as a tourist. You're there as a guest, but you're it's just a wonderful experience, because people are welcoming to you, and you get to spend a little more time, so you can do a little bit of touring and see more of the country. And I've very much enjoyed my time going back to Korea, and look forward to the next time. The last time was towards the end of 2011. So it was just going on 2 years now, and so hopefully in the next year or two I can get back.
That would be wonderful. Certainly there are so many beautiful places to visit in Korea, and I try to get there at least once a year.
Okay.
I'm always looking forward to the next opportunity to go there. You as a political leader have inspired many Korean people, and I think especially young generation. Would you have words of wisdom or any advice for young Korean people in the States?
Yeah, I don't know how wise they're gonna be, but I love spending time with young people, in wherever they may be. So the last time that I went to Korea, I actually was able to speak with some middle school students, some high school students, and some college students, and I really enjoyed that. So I certainly like to try to give some inspiration, or try to give some support to young people. I really do. I guess I would say shoot for the stars. I mean, that's definitely something that I believe in. I believe in knowing yourself and being true to yourself, and seeking out what makes you happy in life. And so if you can do some of those things, you can't go wrong. If you do what you love, if you don't sell yourself short, and just kind of rest on where you've been, but if you actually try to take that next challenge or take that next step, and if you know who you are, I think that those are all things that can be very beneficial to you throughout life.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, what is your next step, Senator? Are you running for another term?
Yeah, the plan is to run for re-election next year. So we have a 4-year term. I was elected in November of 2010. And so the next election would be in 2014. And so I plan to run for re-election and as a state senator. And, I really enjoy what I do, and would really look for an opportunity to continue doing that. And of course, that's up to the local communities that I represent. But, we'll work on that next year. And this year I get to continue enjoying what I do.
I can definitely sense 100% that you chose your occupation really well, and you're very happy in who you are and what you do. And therefore, I think that everyone is hoping that you would continue with your mission, and we will give you all the support as Korean community. Well, I think it would be also nice if you have a few words for all the educators in the state, from K through 12 and universities. Do you have some words?
And this goes back to myself as a person and how I grew up. I hold educators in very high esteem. I think that you all do wonderful work. You do God's work in some ways. You're providing an opportunity to people, be they young people or older people or whomever it may be, and you're sharing learning and you're sharing knowledge and those sorts of things. So I would say try to pay attention as much as you can to what's going on in the political world, but not to be burdened down by it. I've heard from enough educators that feel that think that they've been targeted and really feel not great about their profession. And that's kind of a sad thing. So if I can encourage at any way educators to continue to do what it is that they do and to pay attention to politics, but not to be weighed down by it, to sort of look at the bigger picture and to understand what they do really is something that's incredibly valuable and that's necessary and that will help their community and our great state and the world, the country and the world for that matter, be a better place. I can't think of a better thing to do.
Thank you. That really actually personally assures me that I'm in the right place. There's far greater joy in the educational field than those problems that we will have to bear in our mind and work around to it. But truly, the education is a real important mission in this whole world. So thank you so much for that wonderful advice.
Sure.
Thank you for your time. As a Korean American, I am so proud of you, and I assure you again that all you do will be greatly supported by whole community, and I look forward to having another opportunity to discuss a lot of wonderful things with you in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely enjoyed spending this time.
Thank you. 네, 운영 합긋 미시간주 상원의원과 함께 미시간의 여러 가지 교육 현안과 문제점, 해결점을 의논해봤습니다. 오늘 인터뷰에 응해주신 합긋 의원님에게 감사의 말씀드리고 저는 다음 기회에 다시 뵙겠습니다. 안녕히 계십시오.
뉴스포인트는 시카고 샤프 여행사 협찬으로 보내드렸습니다. 뉴스포인트는 24시간 웹사이트 www.mktimes 또는 www.detkr.com으로 다시 보실 수 있습니다.